It's the Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer, and welcome to episode number 19 with special guests, athletic directors Jay Govan and Stacey Moore. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming on. We talked a little bit off pod, and I met you both when I was the assignment director. Well, first as an official, but we had a really good relationship when I took over the assignment director for 2 years. Got to learn a lot about you both and respect both of you. And I do really appreciate you guys coming on. I know you've listened to previous episodes. They are kind of leading up to different guests coming up. So this has been really nice that you guys were able to get on at this time. So first off, Stacey, I'll start with you. Just some intros, kind of let everybody know what you do, your duties as the AD and your journey and how you got to where you are today.
I am a director of athletics at Northeast ISD. I have been in this position for 10 years, starting my 11th. I've been in the district for 29 years. I started at Kruger Middle School and went to Roosevelt as an assistant girls basketball and softball, and then got the head coaching job at Churchill girls basketball. I stayed there for 10 years. My kids got a little older, got out, went into the PE instructional world, and was offered this opportunity when Karen Funk moved up to Mr. Comelander's executive director position. I was raised by Karen in this position. She taught me everything. I was very fortunate to come up and learn from her.
Okay, great. And then Jay, same question for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mark. Really appreciate what you're doing. I started in Northside back in 2009. I was the tennis coach over at Warren High School. And I give a lot of praise to Patty Hill, who was a principal at Warren that took a chance on me, and very grateful to her. And then also Brian Dowson, who was the athletic coordinator at the time at Warren High School as well. And after that, in 2014, I was offered a position in our district as the tennis coordinator, stayed there for 4 years. And then Stan Lane offered me an opportunity to come up here to the athletic office, and been up here since 2018. And I oversee basketball, golf, tennis, UIL, PAPF things, and everything in between, with the help of the other athletic directors in this office. So far it's been fun. So really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for those intros, Jay. I do need to get on the golf course with you. You've been saying that. I heard you can hit the sticks pretty good. So that'll be in the near future. So first question, I've kind of asked every guest, and it's somewhat of a loaded question, but you both can speak from the high school perspective. And Jay, I'll start with you. Where do you think the state of basketball is in the city?
Being around it and really seeing the inside, and I say the inside guts of it, just seeing where our coaches are, our kids are, I think we're in a good place. But it can be better, just with anything. You're always looking for ways to improve where you are. I think we have some amazing coaches in the area, and I'm talking high school only, and our middle school coaches. I think what makes them so great is the heart that they have. They're about developing kids. They have a really strong integrity, and I think what they want for kids is they want the best for kids, to give them opportunities to play the sport at the highest of the possible ability that they can. I think that we are continuing to make a footprint in Texas, at San Antonio, as one of the best basketball areas in the state right now. We've shown that as teams getting to the state tournament, and we now have schools coming from outside of San Antonio down to San Antonio to compete with us at our tournaments. And so that says a lot about our coaches, and I put it back on them because they're the ones who are pouring their lives into these kids and into their programs. So like I said, I think we're in a really good spot, but, I think that we can continue to improve, continue to push ourselves to find ways on how can we push kids further and further to get the most out of them, every day, every moment that they have.
Yeah, Jay, I appreciate that. I agree. I think at the high school level, we're doing a fantastic job. Boys and girls side, we're getting multiple teams to the state tournament each year. So thank you. Same question for you, Stacey.
I do think that overall, we're in a good spot. I feel like our coaches do a good job. There's more demands on them than there were back when I was coaching, and it's not an easy position to be in. I feel like nowadays the focus tends to be more on the individual player as opposed to the team, and that's kind of caused some, it's not always about the team winning. It's about that person's stats and going to the next level. And I see that in the gym. I hear that in the stands when I'm working an event. That's changed from back when I was coaching as much. We were more, I feel like, about the team. I feel like our high school coaches and our AAU coaches need to work on building that team concept a little bit more instead of making it about the individual. But we've got some great talent. It's fun whenever we get to bring in teams like Jay was talking to our tournaments and get to see how it is in other areas of the state and how we compete against them. And I will say this year, I felt like we competed really well against teams from other areas. So we're going the right direction. We need to hone it back in as a team sport instead of an individual.
Yeah, great answer. And we talked a little bit before we jumped on. And so just a follow-up question for you, Jay. You talked about accountability for coaches at all levels, middle school and high school. So just kind of tell everybody, with both of you and Jay first, just your duties as an AD and how you do hold your coaches extremely accountable for what they're doing with the young athletes they work with every day.
A lot of it comes from, and I think this is with anything, with trust, communication, and we have expectations for our coaches in regards to sportsmanship, in regards to how they communicate to parents, and just holding themselves to a high standard. When I say themselves, the coaches, because at the end of the day, yes, basketball, it's an activity, but what we're trying to do is instill values for the kids for down the road. Some of these kids aren't going to play basketball at the next level. They're not going to do this professionally, but the lessons that are being taught and the values that are being poured into them to help them to be good citizens of this world, and then also good moms, good dads, good family members. So what we do here in Northside is, and everyone, I think most people know, we have a culture of going beyond the game and really instilling hopes and values into our coaches so they can pour it into their kids. And in turn, what has happened, what we've seen here is that the wins are the byproduct now, because there's that intentionality of pouring into what's most important. And so then when times come, having some difficult conversations with parents, having difficult conversations with athletes, with student athletes, that comes easy now, because now here are the expectations. This is what I'm trying to do. Here's the ultimate goal that we are trying to get to. Now, like I said, if we end up winning a state championship or we get to the playoffs, whatever those goals are, well, that's the icing on the cake. That's what came from, going through those valleys and going up to the top of the hill and getting to where we need to be. My duties around here with the basketball program is just communicating, the Texas way. And, that's a big initiative right now in the state of Texas. And it has to do with sportsmanship, from the coaches to the players to the fans in the stands. And what it is, it's really trying to teach everybody that, it's about doing the right thing at all times. Like, yes, we get it. When you're in a heated game, an official might make a bad call. Okay. I had a conversation with a parent one time that was, yelling at an official, this and that. And I went and sat by him and says, okay, what do you do for a living? Well, they says, well, I work in a doctor's office, this and that. And I says, well, do you have people coming up and belittling you, yelling at you, because what these officials are doing on the court, that's a job for them. They're not going to see everything. They're not perfect. They're making subjective calls. Yes, are they going to make mistakes? Of course, we all do, but it's going back to the Texas way. It's trying to teach them that sportsmanship. Like, yes, a bad call is going to happen, but you can't respond in a way that is, I would say, disrespectful to the person that's doing it. But you got to respond in a way that, what, it happened. Let's keep moving forward. You can't say that at the end of the game, we lost by a point. It was because of that call. Well, no, you got to look way back. We missed a basket here. You missed a screen here. Missed a pass here. So there's so many things that build up to that. But I think we get so caught up into the game, we become reactive to the situation at that particular moment. So that's where we are. That's kind of, what we do to, really lead our basketball coaches here in the district.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I can speak firsthand as a referee, as an assigner. Both of you and Jerry are also at SSD, super supportive of officials. And we'll dive into referees later. But that's one thing I can say about every school district in San Antonio. They really do support referees and take care of any issues that you do in your facility. So thanks for that. Stacey, the question for you is just, do you guys have meetings with your coaches prior to the season, throughout the season, end of the season? What kind of messages and expectations are you setting each year?
We have a head coaches meeting before each season, and we have them all in. This year I had 2 officials in to explain the new rules and go over that stuff. We focused on consistency of language so that we're all saying the same things to our fans walking in, so it makes it better for all involved when they come into a facility. We talk about the normal, the equipment changes, bench decorum, the expectation when they come out and shoot at halftime, how their kids should be acting. Our coaches are professionals and they do act as such. So there's not really a whole lot that we have to go over. Our biggest focus is always on any changes in the rules. And we always touch on the bench decorum because that's become a big thing. Kids coming off the bench, making sure that we keep everything intact. But we do that before every season. We always sit down and meet with them. And we don't have in-season meetings, but they get plenty of emails from me, trust me.
Yep, noted, understood. Okay, all right, the next subject, we're talking about shot clock. All right, so I have my opinions on the shot clock. I'm fortunate enough that I work college basketball, so I understand how it works in a shot clock. And we've talked about the shot clock on many other podcasts. So first question is, one, your thoughts on a shot clock coming, I won't say high school basketball because it's in many other states. I want to say 21 other states, but the shot clock coming to Texas high school basketball, and then also your thoughts on it. Yeah. No, Stacey, go ahead.
Okay. It's funny because I saw a graphic yesterday on this with the United States and where the shot clock is. It's funny how the South down here, we still haven't given into that fact of it yet. I can see both sides of it. Obviously, I played with it in college. I understand what it does for the game, as I had somebody out here stalling the other day, passing a ball around, and it would speed up the game. So from that aspect of it, and I'm going to tell you what, I was a coach who passed the ball around a few times. When we played Warren that year that they were so good and we made it to the state tournament, we were ahead. We pulled the ball out and he said, you're either going to come out of that zone or you're not. But we don't have to do anything. We're ahead. So there is a gamesmanship of planning to go into that part of it. So I understand that aspect of it. And the game can get boring if you just pass the ball around. From the financial side of it, in our offices, it's another cost. We have to put shot clocks in everywhere. We have to have somebody to run those shot clocks. And right now in our economic situation in the education world, I don't know where that comes from. So I don't have an answer for you.
Jay, anything to add to it?
I'm for it, and talking from the perspective of the athletic director looking at it and not the coach, because I didn't coach basketball, but seeing it and listening to our coaches' feedback, I think it would, when you think about development, if we have kids that they aspire to go to the next level and play in college, well, the shot clock is in college. And, that's another factor that can help our kids here in high school to have a smooth progression going to college. To Stacey's point, the con of it is, yes, there's a cost to it, and when you think about what the expense is, you're talking about the expense of, purchasing the shot clock. You've got to get an electrician to run power to that shot clock. You've got to decide, okay, are you going to bracket that shot clock on top of your backboard? Or are you going to put it on the wall? And so you've got to look at both of those options because, everybody's goals are on the motor mechanism where it comes up and down. So when you start thinking about that, okay, now you got all these moving parts, bolts come loose, kids are dunking on it, things start happening. The other part is a shot clock operator. That's another expense. You got to get a body in there. Let it be if UIL decides to put it just varsity only, or are they going to go sub-varsity level as well? Now you're having to find another person to be able to operate it. And then, Mark, you can speak to this, is the officials, that learning curve and the relationship that now that official has to have, not just with the clock operator now, but also with the shot clock operator as well. I mean, in a nutshell, me personally, it is my own personal opinion, I think it's something good to have because I think you're going to see coaches coach in a different way. And I've made this comment before, you're going to see your true coaches come out as well because you now have to write up a lot of plays. And then down the stretch is when it really comes into play, in the fourth quarters and at the end of halftime to where that shot clock comes into play now. So like to Stacey's point, you can't go four corners, just pass the ball all over the place. You have to now draw a play up. Because you've got, let's just say, UIL says 30 seconds. You've got 30 seconds to run a play, get the ball in the hoop, For the small schools, we've had this discussion in our area ADs meetings. TABC put a survey out, 4A, 5A, 6A. It was 76 or 78% for it. The 1A, 2A, 3As, it was about 76, 78% against it. So I kind of started asking around. I says, okay, why do the 1A, 2A, 3As, why do y'all not want it? Well, from what I heard was that at the 4A, 5A, 6A level, you get to have those basketball kids all year long. Your smaller schools, those kids, they're playing football, the girls are playing volleyball, running cross country, and then they come to basketball. So the amount of time they have to have their hands on those kids coaching basketball is not the same amount of times as your 4A, 5A, 6A kids. So that was one of the factors that they shared on why they voted against having the shot clock versus having it. So, come the summertime, they'll have more information because after the state basketball tournament, UIL is going to send a survey out to all the superintendents in Texas asking them, are you for the shot clock? Are you against the shot clock? They'll take that data to the legislative council, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. People ask me all the time, and I always believed it was coming down to the money situation, but I can't speak on that because I don't work in the district. So thanks for saying that. I figured that's what was the issue. It's in the back of all of our referee rule books. It's been there for like 3 years, basically saying that it's probably coming. So that's where the conversation has been coming up from officials. You go to the back of the book and it talks about shot clocks, where they are. And it's, I think it's along the lines of possible rule changes coming. Here's my thoughts on it, and I'll see what you guys think about this. I do agree that it's a cost. We just got shot clocks here at the factory. And so I understand the cost it is for a private gym and to get it wired up and all that, but we ain't got to pay no one to operate it. So it is expensive to get it. We're also going to do a lot of training up here for our referees because I do believe it's going to come. I really do. And then some other referees that actually have aspirations of going to college, we can get them good reps. But what are your thoughts about doing it at the, I'm glad you said that, Jay, because I don't think the lower schools could afford it anyway. It'd be really tough for them to do that. But if we talk about 5A, 6A in San Antonio, just put them in the field houses at your Northside, your Blossoms, your Harlans, whatever it may be, right? Even at ACC. And just do it maybe for tournaments to start, or later down the road, just district games. Is that something that possibly could do it where you may have to hit a little expense early on with tournaments and then just test it out and see what that looks like? Or does it have to be all in? We're all in every single game, no matter what. The shot clock's going to have to be there for non-district and district games. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea to, if you're looking at it from a perspective of trying to slowly integrate it into, basketball, high school basketball. I mean, I think that's a great way to do it. I know that in Texas, UIL has allowed certain tournaments to use the shot clock, to have it during games. We've had this discussion, possibly doing it, maybe, for some non-district or tournament games. It kind of came to the table, but we never made a final decision on it. But now, since the shot clock's catching a lot of steam, it's a very trending topic right now in the state of Texas. It might be something we bring back up, like in our Area ADs meetings and with the other, to your point, Northeast, ACC, Northside, and even the other schools, that might not have a district gym, but, maybe they already have a shot clock. And I know for certain, like Alamo Heights, they have a shot clock in their gyms, and, other gyms might have it as well. Like Veterans Memorial, they have a shot clock in their gym. So I think it's worthy of a conversation, just knowing that, to your point, the conversations about a shot clock have gotten heavier and heavier to the point to like, it's not if it's going to happen, but it's when it's going to happen, and just preparing everybody for that change when it comes. So, yeah, I agree with you. Of course, I can't make this decision right now. It's got to be a collaboration. That's what I love about our area ADs is we collaborate a lot to decide on what we're going to do and what's going to be best for, we're talking basketball, but basketball and our coaches and in every other sport as well.
Okay, love it. Stacey, anything to add to it?
No, I do like the idea of the tournament, adding it to a tournament to start with. We play district games in our high school gym, so we would still have to add to our high school gyms. We only have one district facility, not 3 like Jay does. So we would have to add here because we don't have enough space.
I do miss games in the high schools. Just going to be honest. I remember my first ever big field house game was at Paul Taylor with Bob Presenio and John Franklin, the veterans. There was 11 people in the gym. I was like, okay, I've arrived. I miss the games at the high school gyms, that environment. And a lot of people do talk about that. All right. So, Stacey, question for you. The new rule, the 2 free throws versus the one-on-one. We went to the women's college. That's what we do at that level. What are your thoughts on that? And how has that been looking like over to the high school game?
I wasn't quite sure if I liked it or not at first, but I do. I have liked it. It has sped up the pace of the game in a way. Everybody adapted really easily. I like the change overall. I just absolutely liked it. I was hesitant last year, but once I caught on and got the feel of the rhythm of a game, it's been a good addition.
Okay, and then the next one is, what about the faking being fouled this year? How's that been going?
I've kind of watched for those. I've only seen one or two called, but yeah, I can think back. I really wish that would have been in play when I was coaching. I could have said there were a few players we could have used that against.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know me, I watch a lot of film and I'm helping as much as I can with the referees. It's new, right? So it's anything that happens new. Some people go one way, they call it all the time, and some are very reluctant to call it. So just so you know, the referees are working hard at that to try to be consistent. And I think everybody as a referee does like the free throws as well. I had one coach say that they wish they would go back to one-on-one with the pressure. They wish like in the fourth quarter it would go to one-on-one, but that's not going to happen, right? It's going to have to stay consistent throughout the game. You can't start changing free throws based on time, score, and all those type of things. So, okay, great. Good to hear that. So next question for you, Jay, and this has been talked about in other podcasts, and other coaches have come on here in both your districts and have said that it's really hard to get district gym space, if that's at the middle school level, the high school level, for AAU programs. So a lot of private gyms actually closed down the last couple of years, where AAU teams were using those facilities weekly, if not daily, for their summer programs. Now they went away. There's not many private gyms. So now they want to get into the school districts. I've heard a lot that's really hard to get in there. It's very expensive. So just kind of educate everybody in your district. Stacey, you can go next, about, is it possible for outside basketball programs to rent? And what does that look like as far as costs? And if it's something that you guys are trying to help, or really you don't want people in your facilities when they could possibly be open for these organizations?
In North Sides, I mean, we have a process. So it's not that we're denying anybody. So we have a facilities rental department in our district. And so when an AAU program wants to come and use, Tomlinson Elementary School to run their AAU program, what they have to do is they have to get online at our rental facilities department, and it goes through them. And it's what I appreciate about it, there's a checks and balances to it, because it's not just AAU programs. There are, and this just educate everybody, there's so many people wanting to use a gym, let it be a basketball team, a dance team, whatever it may be. We also have another program, the Learning Tree. They also use those gym spaces as well. But there also comes the part of having a relationship with the principals of those campuses, with, if it's at a middle school or high school, with those head coaches as well. And it's also the timing of it as well. You know, during this part of the year, I mean, as everybody knows, it's basketball season. You know, let it be, we've got competitions going on, or we've got our teams in there practicing. But from our office, I'll tell you this, they're going to get priority no matter what. It's going to be, if it's during volleyball season or basketball season, they're getting priority. And then the other things that some people don't think about is, yes, we have turf fields on all of our high school fields, but if it rains and there's lightning and we're in soccer season or there's track going on, well, those gyms are going to be accessible for those other sports teams as well. What I would say is, I'm not against an AAU program coming in and having practices or, you know, whatever it is they need to do. What my thing is that reach out to us and we'll show you the proper procedures to go through to, and I'm not going to promise on here to say you're going to get the space, but to have an opportunity to get that space, right? You know, we open it up to any and everybody, but the other part of this is that there needs to be a give and take. And when I mean a give and take is that, okay, you're going to come in, you're going to use a gym, let's say a middle school gym. Well, you know that there's a basketball season going on. Please wait until the season is over to begin talking to kids and pulling them over here, because what happens is now you've put that kid in a really bad position to where I need to be loyal to my middle school or high school coach, but I also want to be loyal to this AAU program as well. And in my personal opinion, I don't think that's necessarily fair. But I also know from the AAU side, you've got to do your things to start getting things in place, because you got the season coming up and you've got to do what you need to do. But you also need to know that high school and middle school basketball coach, they have put in timeless hours to pour into these kids. And there's something that they started that they want to finish, and give them time to finish that, so that they can close a chapter on that season and then move on. So in a nutshell, that there is a process in place, and we do want to allow these programs to come in, but they just need to go through that process.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, Jay. It's great information. Stacey?
We have a process as well, and it's a rental process. It goes through all of our high school gyms go through our office, but the middle school and elementary gyms go through the campus and the central office, there is a insurance liability because if something happens to somebody, then we have to have that covered. And there is a rental fee. I am not sure what the cost is, but I know that like we have to have an administrator on campus, and I'm not talking an administrator in the office. It could be a head coach that serves as the administrator for that event. But we have to have somebody on campus, obviously with keys, because we're not going to have a custodian there opening and closing things for people. So there is a cost. I will tell you, our high school gyms are pretty much booked throughout the year. We have wrestling added on top of everything else in all of our gyms. So it's working around things. I don't know that we have a lot of AAU teams practicing. I felt like we had more club volleyball teams that would come in and practice and do things, but they are available. There is just the process like Jay was talking about, and it can be tedious.
Yeah. Okay. So all the AAU coaches listening, there's a lot of you on here. That's the process, right? It's just not try to make a phone call and sneak through the back door. You got to go through something, through an office, and you've got to get liability and do all the things above board, right? So thank you for sharing that. Anybody listening, they're available, but you got to go through the process, and it's going to cost you some money as well. It is what it is. All right. My next question, let's talk about officiating. It's always a touchy subject. I know I had Reggie and Rufus, and then I had Kenny and Raphael, and it was great. We talked from AAU to high school, but let's talk about the crisis. Let's talk about the shortage. And then also we'll dive into some classes that I think that I've heard is going on, trying to get just more student athletes involved with officiating after their playing days. So let's just talk about the last maybe like 3 or 4 years. Is the shortage crisis the same? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What are you kind of seeing over the last couple of years with officiating from that standpoint? And then we'll dive into a second question after that.
I feel like over the past year and a half, I've seen more and different officials. So I do feel like it has improved. I know that it's a struggle. I know that I wouldn't do the job. So to get people in there who want to be yelled at or take that yelling, we appreciate it. We appreciate it very much. We appreciate our officials more than they even know. I don't know how we keep them in the game. I understand that middle school level, it's even tougher on them because you have parents up there who don't know what's going on. You have coaches that don't know what's going on, and you have kids that don't know what's going on. And then you throw a newbie official out there, it's just pure chaos. And so we've done a really good job, I think, in San Antonio trying to balance them out by putting a veteran with that newbie and try to keep some people. I feel like I've seen a few new ones in the gym this year. Just the last weekend, I saw some that I didn't recognize. I still see the same guys, love to see the same guys and women walk in this gym, and you have that rapport with them year after year. I feel like we're doing what we can to help that. Jay and I met with Frank in the summer. We tried to find out how we can help build that relationship. We put a survey to our coaches. We got some answers to those, and we shared those with Frank in the Officials Association so that they could understand and hear what our coaches had to say. And it was at a time where we weren't in the heat of the season. So they had time to stop and reflect and answer some questions. And I think that helps both sides of it. One, our coaches feel like they're being heard. And two, the officials aren't being jumped on. They're just being told what we are looking for more of. Because a big thing that we always look at, Mark, is the playoffs. And do our officials want to use our chapter or not? And to me, there's no question. If we're playing a San Antonio team, we're using our officials. Why would you not? And so that was one of the biggest questions that we asked them. And it's good to see that most of our coaches between our two districts have said yes, that they prefer our officials. So I feel like we're making great strides overall.
That's great to hear. And thanks for sharing. I do love that you did that survey off season. Very smart, because coaches can be very emotional during the season, maybe a little clouded, because emotions are high, right? It's a very emotional game. Yes. So yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you guys are working heavily with the chapter and just trying to make improvements, because everyone on all these podcasts is just trying to grow the game. Next question is, I've heard this from Anissa, I believe it was, over at Wagner, that maybe Judson SD, I'm not sure if your both districts are doing classes for officials. Is that something that's going on? Just trying to help keep people around the game. We've always talked about athletes that have played basketball kind of have an edge when they begin refereeing, because they played the game, they kind of understand the game. They're kind of ahead of some people that haven't. Is that something you guys are doing?
We had a couple schools that did it this year, not across the board. I know Southwest ISD has been big on the officiating classes. It is something that would help. And one, it helps the kids make money too, because they can get out and have a job that they can do at their leisure more so. And I don't mean at their leisure, because I know they're working all the time, but they have a little bit more say in their schedule that way. So It's not huge in our district. It was just at a couple of our schools, and hopefully it grows.
Okay. Same with you, Jay. You guys are doing something on the north side?
We haven't jumped into it yet. We've been looking at it, and we've gotten with our curriculum and instruction department as well, and kind of figuring out, okay, how is this going to work? And I think what people got from the school district perspective, when you add a class, you're talking about a teacher, you're talking about adjusting the master schedule, and there's just a lot of moving parts. But we have continued to look at it to figure out how can we implement to it. But I mean, we've heard from a lot of different companies, there's a lot of good benefits from it. And I think like what Stacey said, giving kids opportunities to, make it some income on the side, maybe those kids who maybe are not going to they wanted to go to college, but weren't able to play in college. Well, now they have a way to make some money while they're, taking classes or here, whatever, and gives them a different perspective as well.
Okay, love it. If I can help in any way, I would be very interested in doing something like that or talking to some people that I know. So yeah, we'll just see what happens there. All right. Let's dive into the process of someone wanting to be a coach. So I know a lot of really good basketball players that I've trained, and they're trying to look for the next thing. It's usually either refereeing or coaching. A lot like to take the coaching route because they probably prefer to yell instead of get yelled at. That would be my probably thought process behind it. So what is the process of somebody listening that is interested in becoming a basketball coach out of high school, out of college?
We get this a lot. And so the process you go through, and this is and I'm going to speak on public schools. When you're wanting to get into public schools, you first have to get a teacher certification. If you're going to be a coach, you got to be a teacher. That's the way it works. And what people need to understand is that the bulk of your salary comes from teaching kids in the classroom. And that's one of the things that we really preach to our coaches, that you are a teacher first and then you are a coach. But then when you get in there, you start realizing you take those lessons and the skills you have of coaching and you pour them into that classroom. But when you get if you want to coach basketball, what you have to do is get a teacher certification. Let it be in English, math, science, PE, music. What we tell most people is, and it's hard for them to take this in, is that don't come with a PE certification.
You're going to say that. I knew it. Mm-hmm.
You need to be you have to have a content area certification and I'm not saying, okay, if you get a PE, you're not going to get a job. We just encourage everybody, get something else outside of PE because it's going to help market you. When you meet with a principal, the principal is gonna eyes wide open. So if you've got a candidate that has a PE certification and want to coach basketball, or a history certification and they want to coach basketball, and they both are at the same level, well, they're going to move more towards that history teacher because they know that there's more sections of history that they need to plug that teacher in. And then once you get that, when you get in, let's say you get the job, what happens is that then UIL comes into play, University Interscholastic League, which that is the governing body of athletics in Texas. You then have to go through a set of tests, or we call them CCPs. It's a set of questions to test that person on what they know about the sport, kind of what they stand for. You got to get a CPR, AED training. So there's all those little intricacies of what you got to get into. And this is all before you get the whistle around your neck and you start blowing a whistle and writing up plays and everything. And what we tell most people is that when you see our coaches, who, I praise them every day, and I'm so appreciative that I get an opportunity to lead them, is that when you see them on the sidelines, it's like, wow, all they do is coach. All they do is X's and O's. But what they don't realize is that they're in that classroom before game day. They're grading papers. They're having to do admin duties throughout the day. Let it be bus duty or cafeteria duty or in the morning duty. They are leading and guiding their athletes and their students, possibly maybe going to an elementary school, reading the students. They're on the phone with a parent, talking to parents about this, answering questions. They're meeting with us sometimes. They're having to read an email that Stacey and I sent out. Well, here they're talking about this. They're talking about that. There's so many other things that go into just being a coach. And when we bring them into Northside, we have a screening process, and we get an opportunity to screen candidates before we send them to campuses for the coordinator and the principal to meet with them. And we really get down to the nitty gritty with them and explain to them that you're asking to be a coach, but what you need to realize, it's not what you see on TV. It's not just blowing a whistle and writing plays up. This is more about you're investing in the kids, and your heart's got to be in the right place. And then the skills will come after that. So that, I know that's a lot, but
Yeah.
that's kind of in a nutshell of what it is when you want to become a coach here.
Yeah, it's great info. I think a lot of potential coaches don't understand the process that it takes. And then you're a teacher first, to your point. That's the bulk of your salary. I think a lot of people get clouded with just wanting to be a coach. That's the secondary part to your job, right? You've got to be in the classroom, life lessons, everything off the court. Good stuff. All right, Stacey, what do you look for when hiring coaches?
I love to just sit and Jay talked about the process where we bring them in and we kind of vet them kind of through some questions. I like to sit and get to know them and where they come from and why they want to be a coach. When we bring them in and talk to them, my conversations sometimes go long because it is more than just the coaching. And I think what I have learned over the past few years is that we want to make sure we're hiring people that when you say, I need you to cover this, they're not going to say, am I going to get paid for that? We get paid to be a coach. We have a stipend. There are other duties as assigned. It's not about getting paid to do the extra stuff. You've got to be willing to sacrifice. Your family sacrifices, you sacrifice. If you are not willing to make those sacrifices, this is not the profession that you should be in. Getting to coach a game on a Tuesday and a Friday night, that's the fun part. And that's the part where you get to really do what you love to do. So getting to do the other things, I always loved to work the track meets because I got to see my athletes doing something different. And instead of seeing it as a punishment that I have to go and work something else, you have the opportunity to go and see other people do their jobs and learn from that. The biggest thing I look for is that loyalty piece, the understanding of that it is more than a job. It's not a job. It is a lifestyle. It is what you choose to do. I look for a genuine person, somebody who you can honestly read. And I feel like I'm really good at that part of the job because you get a feel for people. Once you've been in our positions for so long, you can kind of pick those people out and see. And when you start, if they don't ever talk about the relationships with kids, then I really don't want them because that's the big part of it is that relationship that they have with their athletes and their students and that piece of it.
Love it. Great answer. Really, really, really good stuff. All right, let's dive into some Q&A. Going to close out. We talked a little bit off podcast on this one, Jay. So first one's for you. And it doesn't happen in Northeast. So Stacey, you get a pass on this one. Why does NISD implement player participation at the middle school level? This would be playing time and we talked a little bit about earlier. So you said you would have no problem taking it. So lead us away.
Well, what I'll say is, so this topic has come up quite a few times, and it's one of these topics that we bring to the table. We haven't necessarily had a firm answer on why we do what we do, but we've always come back to there was a reasoning why, and it's worked, right? But we do get some questions from people on, okay, hey, why do you do this? Why do you just play a certain amount of kids the first quarter, certain amount of kids second quarter, et cetera, et cetera. And what I would tell you, one of the big things at the middle school level, what I want to share with people is at the middle school level, it's all developmental. Kids are still developing at that age in regards to the basic skills of dribbling, passing, shooting. And we implemented that with that idea of developing kids to get to the position of where they can continue playing this at high school level. As Stacey and I could tell you, you could have 18 kids on a middle school basketball team. And, talking about the size of like our district, for instance, I'll use Brandeis for an example. Well, they're pulling kids from Stinson and Garcia Middle School. On top of, they've got programs in their school where they can pull kids from other areas of the district. So when you take 18 kids from Stinson, 18 kids from Garcia, 18 kids from Jones, and wherever it may be, and you're only going to hold 15 kids on a varsity team or even at the freshman level, well, all those kids can't make it. So it has to do partly with that, is that we're working more so on developing those kids. Now, our basketball season isn't as long in middle school, isn't as long as the high school season. We play X amount of weeks, and then once that's done, those kids then move on to track, and then they move on to soccer. And then before that, they're playing football. So most of these kids are playing everything. You'll have a handful, which is an exception, that all they'll do is play basketball. So they'll do off-season weight training at middle school in the fall. And then I'm sure they'll go to their AAU programs and work with their private coaches. Then once basketball season starts, they'll devote their time to the middle school season. Then after that's over, they jump back into the AAU season once again. Those kids are an exception. There's a handful of them. Of course, you got to have the resources to do it. You've got to have transportation. Mom or dad's got to get you there. So there's all those different factors. Coming back to that question, it is something that we are continuing to look at to figure out when we look at things and we make decisions, we always try to figure out what is best for that kid, what is best for the coaches, and what is best for the community. And we've got to be able to answer those questions when we make decisions like that. That was a great question. It really was. I know you and I talked about it with Stacey too, just kind of figuring out, okay, what exactly are they wanting? And then, talking through it, it better help me understand where they were going with it.
Yeah, it's a tricky question. We run our factory league up here. We just do a 1st through 6th grade right before they get to middle school, but we have playing time requirements as well. I know it's younger, and I toy with it, and I coach in the league with my kids, and I struggle. I find it hard to play kids X amount of time. So if you just have rules, it's easy to follow. If it kind of wiggle room in there, for an example, would be like us, they've got to play 13 minutes throughout the game. Well, that gets tough as a coach. If you I think the way you do it's very consistent, but I do love that you guys are talking about it. It's a possible issue. Coaches are probably having problems hearing from parents about it. So I love that you guys are talking about it and seeing if something that you may change in the near future. So yeah. All right. My next question is, I don't know a lot about this. I'll be honest. It's eligibility questions. So there's 2 parts to it. One will be grades, and then we'll talk a little bit. We always joke about the portal. There's a high school portal. Kids are moving from school to school. It happens all the time, and especially with the better athletes. Let's be real, right? Or they're the ones that everybody knows about when the athlete moves from one school to the other. But the first one, let's just talk about grades. I'm sure it's the same in both districts, but talk a little about grading, how that works, and how kids need to do X amount to make sure they're eligible during the season.
Well, it's the no pass, no play. Obviously, it's the first 6 weeks for everybody at the beginning of the year. And then it's the end of the first 9 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever they're on. We're on 9 weeks. And then it's your 9 weeks grade. It's not your semester grades. So a kid could fail the semester, but pass the 9 weeks and still be eligible to play. And then you have the 3-week progress report. And that's kind of what hit us was the 9 weeks right before Christmas that just hit some of our schools right now. So that's the reason why we've had to make some adjustments in some of our playing schedules. Kids don't always understand the importance of that or the difference between the semester and the 9-week grade. I will say that I feel like our coaches do a good job of monitoring that. The grades are pulled by our data processors and shared with the coaches so that they have the list and there's no questioning. And all of that information is given to the head coaches so that they know what they're looking at. And most coaches monitor through whatever program the school district uses. We use Skyward, so they monitor throughout the year on that piece of it. Grades are, to me, an easy part of it because it's a number and it's easy to figure. And as long as you're following along with it. As far as the transfer of athletes, have PAPFs. And so if an athlete goes from one school to another, they fill out a previous athletic participation form and it can throw red flags. If it throws a red flag, then it has to be monitored, whatever. So you can't move for athletic purposes. And like we have magnet programs or school choice. And there's a difference. A magnet program, let's just say Madison has a magnet program. So a kid from Garner Middle School decides they want to go into the ag program their freshman year, that's the first opportunity. They're eligible right away for whatever it is that they want to do. If they school choice over there, they're not. If they're not going in the ag program, but they just school choice because they want to go to Madison, they're not eligible for varsity their first year. They have to play sub-varsity their first year, and then they're eligible thereafter. If you're magnet program and you go there for a couple of years, then you go back to your home campus, then you have to not play varsity a year over there when you go back to your home campus. So there are all kinds of rules. And I promise you, Mark, every time we think we've heard every scenario that you can possibly hear, there's another one that comes up. So we never have all the answers. The UIL never has all the answers. Some of them, they really make us all think, but we all work to try to make sure that kid is done correctly. Like we want to make sure if the kid is eligible to play, we get that kid eligible to play. Sometimes it has to go to a DEC meeting, principals vote, they're deemed ineligible or eligible, whichever way. And then if they're deemed ineligible, then they can go to the state executive committee. So there are all kinds of processes to go through. My suggestion would be go to school where you're supposed to go to school and play your 4 years and you're good to go.
People ask me and I'm like, I don't know. I have a really good friend who's a head coach in your district, Stacey. I don't mind. Ryan Taplin went to school together. I've never worked any of his games. I don't want to work his games either because he's crazy. But I'd always ask him, like parents would reach out to me. I'm like, I don't know, and I'd always say the safer bet is go where you're supposed to go. But unfortunately, and Jay, follow-on question to you is AAU programs have a lot to do with this. Friends that play over the summer have a lot to do with this. Now they're going to figure out what high school they want to go to, or come join me over here. And we talked about on the last podcast about AAU teams need to do more of that. Not in high school. AAU players need to come together because that's how it was back in the day. When these really good kids start to join forces over the summer, then they can be extremely successful. And so we talked about that. But my question is, are we seeing that a lot more in your districts? And then I also have the follow-on question is some advice for someone that may be potentially thinking about moving to another school.
To answer the first one, AAU is a great platform. It is. And it's a relationship builder. Like to your point, you said that, you'll have, let's go over here. And the reason that happens is when you look at this, when you're playing AAU, families are together for a long time. Relationships are being built. They're being sustained. Trust is being built. I get it. It's like, hey, why don't we do this, do that? However, what people have to stop and look at is that, okay, if I'm at school A and my buddies and all that are at school B, remember, you committed to something, and people need to realize that you committed to a coach, you committed to teams, you committed to people. I get it. There's going to be some extenuating circumstances that happen that say, hey, we've got to do this, do that, because, whatever it may be. But I think what we have to stop and remember is that, like I said, AAU's a good program. But if you live in school A's attendance zone, and that's what we're really pushing out, community-based athletics, go to that school. Because if you're saying that I want to pick up and go play with this friend over here, and I'm not saying these are the conversations that happen, but hey, I think we could win more. That's the wrong conversations to be having. It's, hey, you know what? We played together in the summer, but I'm committed to my community right here because this is where I live. This is where I learn. This is where I play. This is where I'm going to establish my roots at. And you know what? The coach that's there, you know what? Let it be a coach that's good or indifferent or whatever it may be. You might have your own preferences with it, but I'm going to be committed to that coach because they're sacrificing, to Stacey's point earlier, those coaches are giving up their families to pour into kids and to pour into their families. I mean, what some people don't realize is that a lot of our coaches have kids and they're sacrificing being with their kids to be with your kids and to do so many things above and beyond to help your kid be successful. So I think folks have to stop and really evaluate before they decide to pull the trigger to go somewhere else is, okay, is this the right thing I'm doing? My advice, if somebody is really looking at trying to go to another school, my advice is don't do it. Now, like I said, there are some extenuating circumstances that say, okay, hey, yeah, you know what? They were disrespectful, and even if they were disrespectful, did I go through the right protocols to address whatever situation that was at hand? And did I get a response back from them? And then, hey, if it wasn't the response that maybe falls in line with our values or whatever it may be, okay, I get it. Then maybe look at doing something else, right? But if it's just, hey, I want to move over here, I think you need to sit back and ask yourself a question. Are you moving because you think the grass is greener? And we all know this. At all times, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. There's problems everywhere. We all know this. That you're always going to face problems. But I think what parents need to understand, and I'm not telling parents what to do, but what I think they need to understand is that teach your kids to go through adverse situations right now while you're over them. Let them go through hard times because tough times create tough people. And then when they get older, they'll be able to respond to adverse situations down the road because they know, you know what, we went through a tough situation. You know what, when you look back at it, was it really that hard? Or was it just maybe it was my own self that couldn't accept what coach maybe is telling me what to do?
Okay, love it. I love that you said community. We've talked about community on other podcasts from the AAU level. Like we've lost kind of community and everybody doing their own thing. I think we've lost a little bit community at the high school level as well. For you to say that, right? Hey, let's team up in AAU, but I'm loyal to my community during the season. Let's go at it during the season. I think we've lost that kind of in-house competition a little bit as well. I do have an add-on question for you, Stacey, just because someone actually texted me earlier and they do want a legit response. And it's okay. I agree with you both. I don't think the answer should be don't move, right? But the question is they do move. So they move. And it's happening a lot in all over the country. They move what is now the process? Is it they get a coach to sign off? I think you mentioned it earlier. I've heard something about a 15-day deal where you can sit for 15 days. I don't know what that situation is. And then are they just ineligible for a year once that documentation gets signed off? Just talk about the process. If somebody is actually going to do that, what's the steps that it takes?
Well, and it can be that they just move. If they just move and they haven't participated in another high school in any UIL athletics and they move in the first 15 days, but if they've participated in UIL activities at another high school, they're going to have to fill out the PAPF. And actually, the UIL is now requesting that all incoming freshmen fill out a PAPF form. Just so that you know where they're coming from, if they come from your feeder programs or so on and so forth. Someone is not automatically going to be barred from playing for a year eligibility wise as an incoming person. It just depends on, one, the previous coach has to sign off. So if I have an athlete that moves to Jay's school and I feel that my athlete is moved for athletic purposes, then I sign that. I check that box and I sign that, and then that has to go through a process. That raises a red flag. Now, I'm going to have proof of that. I can't just say it and it be so. I have to have hard proof of that. Another thing, when you say just move, some people think going and renting an apartment over here and still owning a home over here is going to work. Well, that's not going to work. So you have to legitimately move and sell and do all the stuff to make sure. Follow the right rules. Don't try to skirt the rules. And if you do it the right way, then you'll be okay. It doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be eligible because, like he said, that coach over at the other school might feel like it's athletic purposes and you might still have to go through a process. But if you did it the right way, there is no proof that you've done it that way. And a lot of it, like you said a while ago, it's going to be the AAU stuff that comes up if they're moving to where some of their teammates are going to school. So that question is a question on the PAPF. Mm-hmm. So they have to be prepared to answer that and answer that truthfully.
I mean, thank you both for being very transparent. It's a little messy. Let's be real. I've been educated. It just sounds extremely messy and a lot of things you got to go through. Kind of educates me and my kids. My kids are very young, but when we get to high school, it sounds like it's just like you said, Jake. Just go where you're supposed to go. You both said that. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line, right? So, thanks for being very transparent on that. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to close on some quick hitters. So the first one, coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
Good. Last two, energy drinks. You need to go to Theory Coffee. I know it's not close to you guys, but it's the place I go to. I'm great friends with the owner's little food truck. You need to both go over there when you get a chance. It's the best coffee in San Antonio, hands down. All right, next one. Phone calls or text thread?
Phone calls.
Both of y'all phone calls. Old school. Everybody texts now. All these kids, they can't get on phones. Forget about it. Next one. In person or Zoom meetings?
In person.
In person.
Love it. You see how this is all like lost in today's world?
Yes.
You want to do Zoom calls. Everybody want to text. Everybody want to call. Okay. Next one. Your favorite sport movies?
Well, that would be Hoosiers.
I'm going to have to say and I know some people might blink an eye at me, but I'm going to say Coach Carter.
Oh, I love Coach Carter.
I loved what he stood for.
That movie.
That's what really got me on that.
That's a good movie. Yeah. We need more coaches like that to drive you guys crazy.
Yes,
get a phone call. Yeah. All right. Last one. What one rule would you change in the basketball game today?
No timeouts.
No timeouts. Dang. Your games will be done in 45 minutes. All right. Awesome.
Did I say that out loud?
You did, yeah. Or maybe get rid of the full timeouts. I don't know. But okay, no timeouts. Got it. You're out. You have 5 timeouts. You don't have any. Love it. Okay, Jay?
I honestly would say adding the shot clock.
So no timeouts and shot clock together. And it's going to be in Northeast and North Side next year.
We'll be done in 40 minutes.
So now we'll change the time span in between our games. Now,
instead
of an hour and a half, they're going to be going 45 minutes.
Which would get more referees out there for sure. That would fix that problem.
There you go.
I'm in and out. I'm home by 8 o'clock. Oh, my goodness. I love it. So no timeout shot clocks fixes all the problems in San Antonio. I'm all about it. Awesome. I thank you both so much for jumping on. This has been a great podcast. Tons of information. I respect both of you heavily and what you guys do. It's a basketball podcast, but what you guys do for all sports in San Antonio. So thank you very much. And we'll be talking again soon. Take care.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out.